I have a question that's actually more a suggestion. May I offer a suggestion for you, Kim Chan, to speak about the energetic reality of life, how you personally came to learn this, what moments you had in your life that shifted you into realizing that everything is an energetic flow and interaction. Maybe recommend some of your books that focus on this. I know there are a good amount of dictations released that specifically address energetic reality. Most people are stuck in a state, in illusion, believing that things and outer actions matter the most to change their personal situation, instead of focusing on the reality of energies that make things, events, actions possible. And of course, the whole situation in the mind is energetic. For example, you're not dealing with anger or fear as some abstract emotions or things, because anger is a state of energy, and so is every thought, every idea, every image in the mind, and so on. Okay, so I have talked about that in some of my breakthrough videos, but probably not in a personal way as much. So I would say that over the many years I've interacted with spiritual people, I think many of us have had the same experiences in life. In other words, there's nothing really special about me. Many spiritual people will recognize what I'm saying. So I would say that there isn't a defining moment where I could say, this is when I realized that there's an energetic side to life, because I always experienced that there was. As far back as I can remember in this lifetime, even when I was a young child, I was very sensitive to energy. And with energy, I mean several things. First of all, people's feelings. My parents' feelings, other people's feelings. If people were unhappy or sad, I could feel it. I'm what you call an empath. And many spiritual people we are really attuned to other people's feelings. And what do we sense when we sense feelings? We of course sense energy waves. Then I always sensed that there was a spiritual presence or being that was with me, but I also sensed there were darker forces that were lower energies. And I experienced this as a fear-based energy or a projection of fear-based energy. And many people I met have had similar experiences. We are spiritual because we're sensitive, when we're sensitive to both higher and lower energies. When I say sensitive, what I mean we're sensitive to energy. So it was not that I had to come to believe that there's a spiritual side to life. It was just something I knew. And I knew it because I can sense energy. So I sense that there are energies that are higher than the material world that I see with my senses. And there are energies that are lower, or at least feels dark in comparison. And this was just an experience. I'm not saying I was clairvoyant. I didn't see auras, I didn't see dark forces, I didn't see angels. I just sensed the energy. So I was always sensitive to that. But then I was always very fascinated with reality, with physics, science, and how science portrayed energy. And I don't know how old I was, but I was very fascinated with Einstein's theory of relativity and this whole E equals mc squared. What did that really mean? And so I was even thinking about that during my teenage years, where I didn't have any spiritual teaching. And I often had this sense that, I remember sitting in high school, I would sit there, and we had these chairs with metal legs, and I could tilt my chair so I was sitting only on the back legs. And then I was holding on to the desk with one hand, and I could find this balance point. Closed my eyes, I found a balance point, and I would let go of the desk, and the chair would just be balancing. And I had this sense that I was almost like in a different dimension. And I felt that if I could just shift my awareness a little bit, a whole different world would open up. I would experience a whole different world beyond the physical. So it was this sense that there's something beyond the physical. It was just always there. And I think many spiritual people have that, however we see it, however we are aware of it consciously. But then, of course, when I found the spiritual path when I was 18, I suddenly realized that people had been sensing this for thousands of years, and had come up with a lot of different teachings, and they had come up with a systematic path for raising your consciousness and, coming to experience or know about this world, this spiritual world. Okay, so I'm getting a little bit, I'm digressing a little bit because the question was about energy. So when did I really realize there was energy? Well, this was really beyond this, as I said, I always sensed it. It wasn't really until I found the Ascended Master teachings, which was in early 1980s. Because the Masters talk about this, that there are different forms of energies, and that the material universe vibrates within a certain frequency spectrum. Beyond that is the emotional realm, the mental, and the identity level. And of course, beyond that, the spiritual. And that everything in these 4 levels of matter, or the material world, are created out of spiritual energies that have been lowered in vibration. And that's what I always sensed. And here was an outer teaching that described that in great depth and detail. We also have a personal energy field that has these 4 levels. We have the energy centers to chakras. And when I learned about chakras, I realized I had always sensed at least some of my chakras. I could very easily sense the solar plexus chakra. When somebody was angry with me, for example, I could feel a disturbance in my solar plexus chakra. I could feel a disturbance in my base chakra and in my third eye chakra, and of course also in the heart chakra. So I'd always had a sense of most of my chakras, and when I learned more about them and learned how the Ascended Masters given a lot of teachings and also decrees and invocations for purifying the chakras, clearing the chakras, it also had a positive impact on my life. And of course I learned that by invoking spiritual energy from the Ascended Masters, we can transform the lower energies. Because what became obvious to me, just based on my experience, is that when we go into negative states of mind and negative feelings, we're qualifying the energy received from our higher selves with a lower vibration. And it accumulates in our energy fields. And the more, for example, anger energy we have accumulated in our energy fields, the more we attract this from other people and from the collective energy field. It's like our own anger becomes an open door for outside energies to be projected into our field. And I had seen people as I was growing up that just became more and more angry, more and more agitated as they grew older. And I realized the explanation was energy has accumulated. And so when I learned that we can use these decrees and invocations to invoke spiritual light from the Masters, I started doing that. And it very quickly had a positive impact on my life. As I've described several times, I had some painful situations I could now think about without feeling the pain. But I had also, throughout my life, because I'm sensitive, I'm also open or vulnerable. And so by invoking the protection of Archangel Michael, I could feel how I was not as vulnerable anymore to these projections. And then by invoking the energy of the Elohim Astrea to cut me free from these lower forces, I could feel how I was cut free from these fear-based vortexes of energy. One of the big fears in my childhood was ghosts, skeletons, supernatural phenomena like that I was afraid could come in and control me. And that fear had opened me up to some of these lower forces, but when I started giving the decrees to Astrea, within just a few months I became free of it. And one practical aspect of that was I could fall asleep very quickly instead of lying awake for several hours. So really there was the background experience, or the my practical experience during my growing up years, and then there was learning about the spiritual path. But really the Ascended Master teachings were the one that for me made it obvious that whatever we do, there's an energetic component. And that, you could say, as I've explained in several videos, we are co-creators. And we co-create by formulating an image, a mental image in our minds. And we project that mental image onto the base energy in the matter light, which then takes on the form. However, in order to project the image and have the matter light take on form, we need energy. We need a certain amount of energy. It's like we can say the 4 levels of our minds form 4 film strips in a movie projector. And if there's no white light coming through, then we have to, there's nothing to be projected on the screen, right? So in order to be successful in doing what we want to do in life, we have to increase the flow of energy. And of course, if we have a pool of fear-based energy in our emotional minds or bodies, it will block the energy. It's like you have a black dot on the film strip that the light can't shine through. And so there isn't as much power in what we are projecting. If we have thoughts that are illusions in our mental bodies, then that's another block. And if we have a certain false sense of identity, for example, we are powerless human beings or we are victims in our identity minds, that also blocks it. So the question, first of all, is from an energetic level, how much energy can shine through our three higher bodies and be projected onto the master light? What is the wattage, how bright is the lamp shining? But then, of course, the purity of the image we're projecting is also very important. And that is a matter of resolving the illusions we have and even our deeper sense of identity. So when we use the teachings and tools of the Ascended Masters to clear out the illusions, clear out the energies, we have a clear vision of what we want to manifest, and we have the energy to drive that projection. We also have to realize that we are living on a very difficult planet like Earth, very dense collective consciousness. So if we try to manifest a certain condition in our lives, there's a lot of interference or even opposition from other people, from dark forces. And so again, it requires a certain amount of energy to manifest what we want. And over the many years now, since the 1980s, where I have been using these tools and teachings from the Ascended Masters, including the tools I've received myself, I can see that my ability to manifest what I want in life has increased. It doesn't mean I can manifest anything I want, but because I realize that I'm on a difficult planet. But I can just see that I'm much better at, formulating a vision and then making it happen, making it a physical reality than I was those many years ago. And to me, that's partly because I purified my vision, brought it more in line with my own presence and the Ascended Masters. It's really not focused on my personal desires anymore, but about helping others. But it's also that I have more energy. I have much more spiritual light than I had back then, and therefore this can drive my manifestation of whatever situation I want to manifest in my personal life. And this is not said to make me special in any way, because the basic motto of the Ascended Masters is what one has done, all can do. And I have simply taken these teachings and tools from the Ascended Masters and applied them. And you can do the same. So, but it was very helpful for me to become aware of energy. That energy, there's an energy component to everything we do, which means we have to dissolve the low frequency energy that has accumulated in our energy fields, and we have to open up, expand the connection to our own presence and the Ascended Masters so we receive more creative energy from above. And so there's, of course, a lot more that could be said about this, but I have already said some of it in my other videos, and so this was more to hopefully inspire people to start realizing that you also are sensitive to energy, otherwise you wouldn't be a spiritual person, and you can increase that sensitivity. I've of course become more sensitive over the years. I'm better at sensing energies today than I was back then, and this is also very helpful, especially when dealing with other people, because you sense their intention, where they're coming from. They may put on a great facade as being spiritual, but they may still be trapped in the ego, in coming from this self-focus. And you can sense that just by sensing their vibration, their energy. You can also sense fallen beings. Their energy is a very manipulative energy, deceptive energy, or sometimes even outright aggressive. But you sense, basically you can come to a point where you can read other people. You can read their vibration. And you can read their intention. What's their intention? Because when you're not so focused on yourself anymore, you can sense it when other people are focused on themselves. And it may be that what they're saying is perfectly benign, but there's still that focus on self. That means that they're not quite as open. They're not quite as open as you are, and therefore you sort of perhaps you step back a little bit and wait and see what they're going to do, and then perhaps you can help them at a certain point to see that they have that focus on self. I'm digressing here, but anyway, what I'm saying is that the more you purify your own energy field and your own intentions, the contents of your emotional, mental, and identity bodies, the more sensitive you become to others. It doesn't mean you judge them in a human way, but you just sense the energy they're radiating. Is it of a unselfish, loving vibration, or is it of a lower vibration where they have some kind of self-centered intention? And you can read that. And of course, it's always much easier to interact with people who don't have the self-focus. But the way I look at it is that when people come to me that have the self-focus, I try to help them see through their subconscious selves so they can also come to that point, because overcoming this focus on self is just the greatest liberation you can go through.